Okay, so welcome to the self-indulgence series, or what I like to call self-indulgence of the unapplied. You do the math on that one. You figure that one out. You work it out. Anyway, this is episode 1. And in this series, basically what I'm doing is going through my slush piles from the past of boxes of drawings and sketches and outlines, and bringing them up into the present. Now, a lot of these images weren't worth a damn to me, but some of them I retained, and some of them I looked at and I thought, what was the original intention here? Let's try and bring it up. Let's play with it a bit. Let's doodle with it, Let's try and correct. Let's try and erect the drawing to its intended form. Now, a lot of this stuff, to be specific, this is a example of, you could probably figure this part out, a ballpoint pen drawing, just with a normal ballpoint writing pen drawing. And this is also an example of one of those ones rendered back in the day at a particular job site I was working in a machine shop. I was working, I'd usually pull these off on the afternoon or night shifts. Working CNC work where I could just, once I got set up and once the working was done, loading parts, taking parts off, doing my checks, measurements, whatever, inspections, and then, a lot of the times the run times were quite long and you'd run them and you had time to, just sit there and watch the machine do its work. CNC, computer numeric control, just meant that basically the actual process was, it's automatic anyway. You work from programs logged into a computer, which is connected to your machine. We also had conventional machine. Anyway, I'm talking about a job that I probably, if I had, had been steered in a different direction, probably could have avoided. But at the time, I don't know, as a young man facing realities, I needed something tangible, a trade at least, to give me a chance to make a living. Anyway, that was my thinking, and that's what eventually led me to something like that. Not that there's anything wrong with it. But I want to point something out too. On the other side of this paper here, you can see it's like computer printout paper. So, a lot of this stuff would be lying around. And while things were running, I'd just do my doodles. Anyway, that's the brief history of where this came from, and many like them, usually ballpoint pen drawings. But anyway, this is, of course, as you can see, or maybe you can't tell because of your greater knowledge of the character, is the Silver Surfer, right? And this was let's see, I do have a date on there. And this is September. Do I get that right? Right. Yes, it is. Silver Surfer. September of 2003. Okay? So whatever, right? I got into the habit of dating things. It's more self-indulgence. Sketches anytime. Always trying to chronicle some sort of development or life in art. I don't know. But it was a good habit, and I'm glad I did it, because as I went through the slush piles of drawings that were kept over the year, I could tell exactly when they were rendered, and that's great. Anyway, here's our hero, right? Well, right away, anyone very familiar with the Silver Surfer, whom I thought I was, will notice there's a problem. I'll give you first hint. it starts from the chin upward. Okay? What's going on there? Can you hear me out there, folks? What's going on there? Well, like I said, Silver Surfer can hear us. Because he's got ears? He can hear it anyway. But yeah, the character, it's so weird. He doesn't have ears. But what's so strange about that, and not knowing that, but being familiar, or at least knowing of the character from back in the day when, oh God, as far back as 78, 79, getting those, those slush cat and Slurpees with the cup, seeing him on the image on the cup and being aware of him, thinking I knew. I never got into that until much later. It was later that I get into the Kirby stuff at all with the Fantastic Four. I had no knowledge of that, and any reference would come from, say, a reprint of something. And the books at that time I wasn't really reading, I was collecting. I wouldn't get ready to start actually reading them until I was about 11. And then I got hungry for them, right? But none of the Fantastic Four stuff, really. Spider-Man and some of the movie dedications and stuff. Let me see. It doesn't matter. I go through the list, but mostly a lot of Spider-Man and some Avengers, Captain America, and stuff like that. But so it was remarkable because even by 2003, here I am trying to wing off this character that I was unfamiliar with at the time. You see, I had later caught a glimpse of the animated series that came out. Oh, I'm so, I was so sad to find out that it didn't continue. And I thought that was really cool. And then I got interested in the character Thanos, too, which was something else, too, that led into, you know what I mean? It was like a new introduction to the Marvel Universe that I was unaware of at that time, even though I had been a fan of certain characters and comic books up until that point. But anyway, I was looking at this drawing. Now, today, meaning, our current year, and saying, well, I'd like to hold on to it. Maybe I could play with it and remedy it. So, to me, what was obvious was, no, I'd have to knock off the ears, maybe some correction fluid, and then do the work over. Now, you can't do that with correction fluid and do the pen over. It will look horrible. It's not made for that. So what do, right? Well, here's what I did. I took this in to my local office supply store and got some copies made. But I made sure the copies were in black and white and brought up the density so they had a black and white look to them. I figured I'd start there because then I could start putting white out in and then do copies of the copies, right? You're getting the picture where you're eliminating the bad line work, getting the stuff out and looking at the spots where you want to put new things in. So I decided to go ahead and get started on that. And it began a series of 5 or 6 stages. Let's take a look. So, right off the bat, we had our black and white photocopy. Now, in the original, there was a lot of evidence of paint marker that I was using as correction fluid right there on the shop floor. It was made from, it was terrible. Believe me, when you photocopy it, it would come up blue and all that. But anyway, you can see evidence of that. And so at that, and you can see it in some of the Kirby Crackle here. At that stage, I decided, never mind putting the correction fluid on the original. Let's start with our black and white picture here. So after going ahead with that, I could see pretty much right away some problem areas. And that was like in the, I don't know if people know this, but in your pectorals, you've got an upper pec and a lower pec. So up here, I've got it all squeezed in and it looks all compartmentalized. This is wrong, really. But this was free form drawing, trying to give a, my main focus obviously was to give a feel for a mercury-like mass, solid mass of reflection, etc. And in something like that, when it comes to line art and comic book, you can get nuts with it, really. And that's what happened there, but something got away from me there. Now, as I already stated, we had to get rid of those ears. And so I knew the first thing I was going to have to do was block out some of this stuff in the chest area here. And some of this stuff in here, this sparkle here, isn't really coming up. It's not showing up well. So I was just going to correction fluid right over top of that. I think I applied some more white inside the crackle and started tickling up the white areas a bit. Like, see here, you can see it's smudgy and stuff. Smudgy here. Dirt, grease, oils from the machine shop. You know what I mean? From my fingers. You know, stuff will get filthy. Like these... These pieces of paper, the scraps of paper, the originals, they're, you know, they're drenched in all kinds of things, carbon and whatnot. But anyway, so I knew where I would start. Okay, let's look at this. I'm gonna knock out part of the upper back, put in some whites, and move on from there. So there we were, off to the races. Sorry about the audio, folks. This goddamn mic, I broke it off its mount, so sometimes it falls to the floor and I don't realize when I'm recording that I need to pick it up. But anyway, picking up from where we left off, okay, right away, blocking out the ears. All of this, a sky and background here would have to be filled in later. Started knocking out the upper pec work, but just slightly, if you notice, right? I'm still hesitant, right? I don't want to knock too much stuff out. Continuing to white out some of the areas, cleaning up the Kirby crackle, and so forth, moving along. But the important thing was to get rid of those ears. Remember? And whoops, just want to note, pay attention to what I did here. I just took some correction fluid and, you know, kind of put in the 6 points. What is it, 6 points? Wait. No, it's 8 points. 8-point stars. Like the others, right? But God, hold on a second there. I just whited it out. So basically you can imagine what I'm going to do there. Just go back and fill in the blacks and restructure that out. So at this stage, we end up with something like this. As you can see, the pec's been restructured, right? And, the whites on the face are all fine. They come in. Ears are gone. That background's filled. And I even put in another 8-point sparkle off the side of his face, his cheek there. And this one I started roughing in again. Started. When I say started, because the next stage, I'll tell you folks, sometimes these things get away from me and things just happen. But here we go. I'll show you what I mean. You feel me? See what I mean? Okay, perhaps you don't know what I'm trying to emphasize here. Oh, and by the way, these notes were notes to self, whatever, fine print there. I don't know. I was getting, again, self-indulgent. Over one little drawing. But whatever. I mean, there was a purpose to this. I don't know if you noticed, and further back I should have pointed it out, but I narrowed the bottom lip down a bit too. It was a bit too big and puffy. and which was fine. Like, it looked good too, but he was looking more. It gave his features more an African American look, and that wasn't really what I was going for. So I changed that too. But anyway, as you can see, there's something different about this drawing, wouldn't you say? Well, yeah, and I'll tell you what it is. This is going to sound insane to you. But what I ended up doing is right? See, each of these stages is another photocopy, right? In black and white, black and white. Go back to it. Now, at this stage, what I ended up doing one night is just I cracked open, I got a black pen, a black ballpoint pen, I don't know, Paper Made or something. And at one point, I think I was using a Studio fine ball pen or whatever. But between the two, and I was using markers too. It's insane. But I ended up basically with those pens, I'm telling you. Okay. I'm telling you. I'm telling you straight. This is what I ended up doing by the time we get to the stage. Here I go again with the mic. I'm sorry, it was on the ground. I went over them, the whole drawing again. I basically just did the whole drawing over again with pen. That's why this particular copy looks shiny, because it's got the ballpoint pen ink on it. And that's why a lot of the lines are a little slightly different too. And I just went back over it. I was trying to tighten things up. Adding some more crackle here and there. And all along during the process too, once I got this, we're almost there at the end, at the last stage. Once I got to this point, I just, started dotting in the white specks to make up stars. And here you got one with a gas ring, sort of like a Saturn kind of look to it. Whatever, and the crackle, it's all, the important thing was to reflect some of the stars and shining stuff in the figure too. It was really coming along by this stage. And then, you'd think I'd be done, right? But I still wasn't quite, because I can see, and you actually can feel it, it's got texture, more correction fluid. I was going over, did I tell you I was self-indulgent? Anyway, I went back and started filling in some more of the whites with the correction fluid, trying to bring up those whites even more, because this would yet render another photocopy, right? And I think it would have been the last one. Anyway, hold on. Here it is. So by this time, it was safe to say that I pretty much accomplished what I wanted to do. Repaired the peck, whitened up the whites with correction fluid, got rid of the ears, modified the mouth, brought in a few extra sparkles here and there. Overall enhanced it with a new run of inks. But here's the thing. If you notice, there are blotches of correction fluid again, and it's not from the photocopy, it's actual. You can feel it. You realize, you start to get the picture. If I didn't stop, I wasn't going to leave this alone. Well, I'm going to leave it alone for the sake of this video. And just say that, well, no, I brought it up, got rid of those ears, and I wanted to retain the image. I like it, It's rather conventional, but I like the image itself, and it was a keeper to me, so I kept it. And I just wanted to show you how I could, how you could too, if you have any of these old You see, that's the thing about ballpoint pen drawings. When you're drawing along and you have no reference, and I've said this kind of thing before, a lot of things can go wrong. And ink's unforgiving, right? It's not like pencil drawing where you can use an eraser. So once they go wrong, if you're going to save the image, that very image, well, you got two choices. You can either just draw it again, which is probably the proper route. But I'm not on, there's nothing proper about the routes I... Actually, that sounds horrible. But no, what I'm saying is you can either just start a new drawing, or you can go through way of corrections, making the images black and white, get through photocopies, and bring it up. You can really get tight that way. But oftentimes what can happen, not to all artists, like I'm far from mastering my craft, and I can't always render. Actually, I'm not very good at rendering images the way I see them anyway. You know what I mean? I can get a rough idea. Like you might look at a drawing I do and say, hey, that's pretty good. But if you look at it, it's not quite, I used to pound myself on that issue. But then I looked back at some of the drawings of even Michelangelo and Leonardo when there's some of the drawings you look at when they're doing like Masaccio and stuff, when they're copying who they thought were the masters. You look at them, they're not identical. They're far from it. They were just basically looking at these things for drapery. Anyway, I'm rambling. Did I tell you I was self-indulgent? Anyway, I decided to stop there, or otherwise I'd never leave it alone. But the idea was to show you that you can save these images. That's what I think I do. I think I did and would do. And like I said, this is coming from a real slush pile, so there's a lot of these that I hope to retain in the next little while. And I'll show you, with the various photocopies, the step-by-steps, and how it was done, what took place, and you know what I mean? There you go. But in a way, when I look at this and I compare it to the picture I showed you just previous of this one, the black pen and ink done again, it's so far away, it's gotten away from the original blue pen and ink drawing of it, but but I actually like it better than the final product. Even with the correction fluid on it. What can you do? So much fun. I like the image. Glad I retained it. But yeah, I was really obsessing. I was really starting to obsess, and I realized that if I don't pull away from this, I'm never going to leave it alone. I'm not going to get anything else done. So we'll kind of consider that and leave it at that. And yeah, welcome, welcome. For those who decided to hang out and see what the hell I was talking about. But yeah, that would pretty much wrap up our first episode of The Self-Indulgence of the Unapplied. With our subject matter here, the Silver Surfer. Without ears. But he can still hear you, and never mind, I'm going. See you on the next one.